Thousands of people in New York City are casting their early ballots to pick a new mayor. Polls opened over the weekend with just 1 week left until the primary election. 8 Democrats are facing off for the job. A new poll from WNBC, Telemundo 47, and Politico shows Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams dominating the field with 24% among likely Democratic voters. He is followed by former New York City Sanitation Commissioner Kathryn Garcia at 16%. Let us bring in one of those candidates, Dianne Morales. She's joining us now to talk about all this. So, Dianne, let's talk about the NYPD data that shows that shootings and hate crimes have gone up in New York City. A Spectrum News and Ipsos poll found crime is a key issue in this race. You've been very open about your support of the defund the police movement, arguing that police, quote, do not keep us safe. So talk to us about how you plan to make the city safer while also defunding the police.
Yeah, so thank you. Good morning, and thanks for having me. I appreciate that question. I think, the reality of it is that New York City has the largest policing budget in the country, if not the world. And if, in fact, there was a correlation between, funding and safety, we would be the safest city in the country and in the world. We need to actually move towards decoupling the idea of public safety from policing. Public safety really is connected to, and we've seen over the course of the last 15 months that our government and our leadership has failed us. In the middle of a pandemic, they have failed to provide housing security, food security, economic security, and actually healthcare security in the middle of a global pandemic. We can't decouple those issues from the safety issues that have arisen. And so my proposal involves divesting from policing and investing in the things that actually result in safer communities, investing in providing housing and jobs and healthcare, and actually also creating a community first responders department to remove issues that are not crimes from the NYPD. Right now we have them responding to homeless issues, mental health issues, substance abuse issues. None of those things are crimes. So we should actually create a community first responders department that would be staffed with people who are trained and skilled at not just intervening in those crises, but actually helping people make progress to overcome the issues and the challenges that they face.
So I want to bring up some of the things that you brought up in that answer. New Yorkers consider housing another major problem that needs to be addressed. Yes. The pandemic has put many at risk of losing their homes once an eviction moratorium ends. And you've said that, what the city has really done is centered and prioritized developers and developer profits. And you want to reallocate investments to communities in need. As mayor, how would you redirect that money?
Sure. So, I think one of the things is we have to acknowledge that housing is a human right and that we can't separate housing from health and safety, right? We've seen that over the course of the last year. So we could actually prioritize providing housing for everyone. That means converting existing vacant spaces, hotel rooms, empty hotel rooms, buildings that are in distress, vacant properties into permanent and affordable housing for everyone. That entails redirecting the dollars that are currently being invested in luxury developers that give us an ROI of affordable housing that is very small and actually not affordable to average New Yorkers. We could redirect those funds into city-owned and community-owned vis-a-vis nonprofit affordable housing developers, developments that actually would create affordable housing for everyone. And that is, it is a reframing of the way that we have done things, which really has put luxury developers in the driver's seat, that really puts the community and people in need and New Yorkers in the driver's seat in terms of the development and expansion of affordable housing for everyone.
So, as we mentioned, Eric Adams is leading the race, but recently he drew some criticism over comments he made back in February about using remote learning to allow for year-round classes in New York City. He also suggested massive class sizes of 300 or 400 students to help make the idea reality. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I have to say, as the only former educator in this race, as a graduate of the New York City public school system and the parent of 2 graduates of the public school system, I have a front row seat. I've had a front row seat to the inequities and disparities in education. That is not the way. That is not the solution. We need to think about how we expand our square footage so that we can reduce class sizes. We should be thinking about how we actually move our education system forward from the arcane system that really resembles the Little House on the Prairie classrooms. And I'm dating myself in that comment, but I think those of you who are my contemporaries will understand what I'm talking about. We need to think about how we integrate the city as part of the classroom so that we're giving our young people real life experiences and exposure to all of the opportunities and the careers that are available to them. And we need to think about how it is we incorporate technology into instruction and education so that we are providing blended learning options for families that need it, for families that benefit from it, for students that can thrive under those conditions. And finally, I'd say, we need to think about how it is we really create culturally responsive education in our schools so that all of our children see themselves reflected in the curriculum and also have that reflected in the teachers, both in how they're trained and who it is that's standing in front of our classrooms. So there's a lot of different things that we could be doing with education. Having 400 or 500 students with one teacher virtually is definitely not the way to go.
According to some new reporting from CNBC, Wall Street has been pouring millions into the mayoral race. Eric Adams and Andrew Yang have reportedly gotten the biggest support from these groups. I'm wondering if you are concerned about these big money donations going to other candidates.
I mean, as the only candidate in this race right now that has not been supported by any PACs, that has been 100% supported by small dollar grassroots donations, mostly $10 at a time, and that has the second highest number of New York City resident donors. I can tell you that I think it's really important for New York City voters to decide. It's important for them to have the information about who's supporting who and what really our policy and platform positions are. And to make decisions about who it is they want running this city. We've seen over the course of the last 15 months, 16 months, that it's the working class, the low-income, immigrant workers, Black and brown communities that have kept this city running. And we need to make a decision, I believe, to have someone in office who is going to prioritize addressing those needs, because we know that our destinies are inextricably linked. And that we have relied on those communities to keep us safe and make it possible for so many of us to work safely from home during the pandemic. And now it's time for us to take care of them as well.
Let me ask you about some controversy your campaign has been embroiled in recently after two high-level staffers resigned over accusations of mistreatment, and dozens of remaining employees were fired after moving to unionize. Your campaign lost endorsements from some key groups after that, many of which moved to support one of your ideological closest rivals, Maya Wiley. How has your campaign attempted to move forward from this, and what do you want to tell voters that may no longer see you as the best option for a progressive mayor, given what's transpired?
Sure. I think the first thing I want to tell voters is that I support all of my staff, whether they, participated in the work stoppage or continued working. And I think it's important to note that there were quite a few staff that continued working and that were not involved in the work stoppage. And that through the course of all of this, I have continued both to engage in conversations with those engaged in the work stoppage and was fully supportive of their unionizing efforts, and also to manage the staff that continued working while continuing to operate this campaign and run as a candidate. The unfortunate thing for those that wanted to organize was that we didn't engage in the process that is actually laid out in terms of unionizing, and things got dragged out, and I needed to make a decision last week about how we were going to move forward. Fortunately, I was able to pay them out fully for their contracts, but I needed to make a decision. We were not going to unionize by the 22nd next week, but I'm very happy that I was able to figure out how to pay them all fully, so that they've all, their contracts have been fully satisfied, and those that were engaging in the work stoppage anyway. And to keep moving forward. And that is, it's a lesson learned in terms of what it takes to unionize. I think, coming to the table, both sides, bringing in an outside independent negotiator to help navigate that process. Those were all things that we offered and that the staff unfortunately refused to do. And so we had to make a decision. And I think that's a management decision that, anyone that has ever had to lead a team would have sort of shared and could understand.
All right, Dianne Morales, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.